Last Saturday evening, after a couple glasses of wine, I was on Instagram scrolling and answering DMs. Now, if you ever want to get a positive response from your old Uncle E from an Instagram message, Friday or Saturday night's usually a good time. Because after a couple glasses of wine, I'm feeling fine and pretty generous. I assent to certain things that I probably wouldn't if I was sober minded. Anyway, here I am, and I get a message from one of y'all. Somebody's been watching my videos recently. And he's explaining to me that he's going through a tough time similar to mine, and he's got some ideas about how maybe we could help each other. I'm like, hey, cool. I'm feeling open. So I agreed to it. I sent him my calendar link. We get on the phone yesterday. Of course, I don't know what to expect. I'm also kind of like resenting my decision to take this call even before I get on the call. But I'm like, let me be charitable, and then of course, who knows what's possible. So I get over my resistance and I get on the call. And this guy is cool. I appreciate him. I appreciate you, because I know you're watching right now too. Same age as me, actually born like 2 weeks after me, same year, same month. And I was going through some tough times, man. He's a single dad. He's got a son and a daughter that he's raising by himself. Rough situation with the woman, and he's doing the best that he can. Money's tight, things are falling down around him, but it's one of those seasons in life, right? And my heart goes out to him. We're same age, but my kids are all grown. He's changing diapers, so we're just in different stages, but traveling the same journey. Anyway, greatly appreciated his willingness to share what's going on in his life, as well as offer some feedback for me to consider. And there were some significant things that, not that I hadn't already thought of, but I was like, okay, this guy's been thinking, right? Gave me some ideas about offers that I could make, and business stuff structurally. What I can possibly do. All stuff I've done. He told me do retreats. I'm like, yeah, I did retreats for 8 years. Do membership sites. Yeah, I've done a bunch of membership sites. So it's like basic, fundamental, like if you're going to be a YouTube dude, it might be helpful. But then he went on to proceed. I think the conversation was just, going a little too long. And I think he felt like he needed to fill the space. And that usually happens, especially when somebody's nervous. And, he clearly was more nervous than I am on the call, because he knows me and I don't know him. The conversation was going a little long, and so he's trying to fill the space and started giving some maybe unsolicited advice, or at least advice that I resisted. I was like, okay. I didn't get upset. I wasn't upset at all about the advice, but I was like, okay, I could see where this is going. Conversation's a little bit too long. Almost time to wrap up here, buddy. Right? And it's so funny because the very thing that he was suggesting, and the violation of how I would be violating this law that he was trying to explain to me, he was doing the very, very same thing, which is don't offend anybody. This was his advice in not so many words, or in more words. So here was his advice. And listen, I was resistant right away because I've got my own experiences and I've learned from many other teachers, and I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want to do. Sorry, y'all. But he tells me this. He says, Elliott, do not talk about religion. Do not talk about politics. As soon as I heard that, I was like, don't tell me what to do. Do not talk about what I should do. That was my original. I was like, ugh, who is this guy? Why is he giving me? Now he's overstepped his bounds, right? But I guess that's the very same thing that he must have felt when I chose to speak about religion or politics or sexuality, right? These are the topics that are taboo. So he explained to me, I used to watch your videos, and then you started talking about these things, and I didn't want to talk to you anymore. And I'm here thinking, you're telling me not to talk about these things, so I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I guess that's why people try to avoid these topics, because they make people uncomfortable. Talking about it makes people uncomfortable, and telling me not to talk about it makes me uncomfortable. So it's charged. They're charged topics. They're charged issues. And so I can understand why some people, certain people, most people, average people, don't talk about these things. So it got me thinking, okay, maybe I need to humble myself and consider what this man is saying. So, very first thing that comes to my mind in defense of my self and my self-expression is, well, if I'm not going to talk about these things, then what else is there to talk about? Like, in other words, like, those are the most controversial, the most divisive, and therefore the most attractive things to talk about, right? They're loaded with all kinds of associations and feelings, and so it triggers people. And I remember I have two mentors of mine, both very successful men in their own right. One is Paul Chek. If you know anything about Paul Chek, Paul will say whatever the fuck he wants to say. He will voice his opinion strongly, firmly, and consistently, whether you like him or not, And I really admired that about Paul, especially when there were things that I didn't agree with. And that's when I realized I was becoming a man. When I was very young, like, the way a lot of you guys see me is the way I see Paul, only because of the age situation, right? Like, I was in my early 20s when I found Paul Chek's work. And so everything he said, I was latching onto. And so even if I didn't have an opinion about something, if it was his opinion, it became my opinion. But then I grew up, and I must have seen him last time. I was probably just turning 40, maybe 41. And of course I had grown, and he's got his opinions, and they clashed. In fact, I was wearing a cross around my neck, and he started attacking Christians. And I was unmoved, because I knew what Paul was doing. I was like, this is Paul. This is what he's going to do, and he's convinced of his opinion, and he's going to provoke you. But I did not sense any malice, nor did I feel personally attacked. I just understood that, okay, I'm in this man's presence, and I'm going to receive all that he is, not just the pieces I like. I think that's what real love is anyway, right? And then there's another mentor, a marketing mentor, perhaps the greatest copywriter and direct response marketer of our time. A lot of you guys know Alex Hormozy, right? Well, I think of this guy is Alex Hormozy's granddad. Grandpa Hormozy. Why? Because if Hormozy's teacher was Russell Brunson, which I know it is, Russell Brunson's teacher was Dan Kennedy. And I remember taking a course from Dan Kennedy several years ago called Influential Writing Course. And Dan Kennedy was adamant that beyond teaching of the technique as an expert, right? I'm an expert. I teach the technique of like a front squat, right? Beyond that, people stay around because of the character, not the information, but the presentation, the individual. And the only way, and the best way, let me put it this way, the best way to influence people as an individual is to have strong, divisive opinions. And he says most people don't have the guts for that. He says he gives all kinds of examples, both in Hollywood or whatever, sports, politics, and he really goes on to explain that like it is the highest magnetism. It creates the strongest magnetism as well as the capacity to repel. And of course, he went on to say that like to the degree that you repel is to the degree that you'll magnetize. But if you take the stance of most people, I don't want to judge, but most people who aren't thinking this way, you want to avoid repelling people and you just want to magnetize. You just want to magnetize and no repel. Okay. Then you got to ask yourself, or at least I got to ask myself, what is the meaning of all this? Why am I even doing this? You guys know that like I'll go broke before I show up on this camera and talk some shit that doesn't come from my heart. Even when I'm performing, it's coming from my heart. It's coming straight from like, this is, I'm not making shit up. I'm not telling you what somebody else told me. So I got to be true. I got to be honest. I got to be transparent. It's just the way I am, right? And so I have to ask myself, what is the point of all this? If I want to attract the most people without offending anyone, then I'm for the masses. And the masses are asses. Just take this for example. McDonald's. McDonald's is positioned to attract as many people as possible. It's just like, a corporation that does that. They're unless it's rainbow shit, they're not going to talk about it. And it makes you wonder, like, why? So religion and politics are off the table, but why does everybody wave the rainbow flag? But, that was more a couple years ago, not so much now. But anyway, that wasn't my point. My point is, everybody knows McDonald's is bad for you. Everybody knows McDonald's will make you sick. If you eat too much McDonald's, you're going to get sick. You're going to get fat. You're going to get obese. You're going to get cancer. And you might even actually be a cannibal. They said there's human meat in their hamburgers. But they never would you hear them talking about Jesus Christ. You only hear them talking about Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad. Right? You won't hear them talking about politics. You won't see a Trump flag. You won't see a Biden flag. a Biden-Harris flag, right, in front of McDonald's. Because their job is to be for everyone. Even though it's shitty food, people know they're lying out the door. But they never talk about religion or politics. Do you, and I'm kind of brainstorming here as I'm speaking, do you know that Chick-fil-A is the fastest growing fast food restaurant in America? It overtook McDonald's a couple years ago. Chick-fil-A. It's fucking McDonald's with chicken instead of beef. That's all it is. And people are not fooled into thinking that it's healthy. If you think Chick-fil-A is healthy because it's chicken, you stupid. It might be a notch healthier than McDonald's. But Chick-fil-A closed on Sunday. Why is Chick-fil-A closed on Sunday? It's a political, religious statement. They're saying, as a Christian organization, we will obey the Bible. Ain't gonna be no working. None of y'all gonna work on Sunday. So what's going on there? Is this principle, this so-called principle of don't talk about religion and politics, a legitimate principle? Or is it actually born out of fear and greed? That's what I tend to think. You not speaking your opinion usually isn't out of charity for the other person. You're not doing it to save someone's feelings or to appease them. You're doing it because you don't want to be rejected. That's why. That's why. As a business, you do it because you don't want to repel potential customers. And that's why I got to ask myself, like, okay, why am I doing this? If I'm doing everything that I'm doing in order to be at McDonald's, I'm for everybody, then yeah, I understand. Then I understand. Right? You got to be for everybody, and you got to wave the rainbow flag, because that's the extent at which it goes. These types of principles, these types of rules have been passed down by those who want you to be weak. They don't want you to talk about Jesus, because once the cat gets out the bag and communistic atheism loses its power, they lose influence. They don't want you talking about politics. They don't want you talking about politics, because if you open your mouth about some policy or some decision that the oligarchs have decided, they lose power. They won't gonna shut you down. It's just like your parents when you're a little kid telling you not to talk back. What happens when you talk back? You diminish your parents' authority. Don't say such things, and rightfully so. You shouldn't. But who are your parents in this instance where you decided not to talk about things that are highly charged because you're trying to be a nice guy or try to garner the attention of the masses who are asses, the filthy masses? I don't care for the masses. I don't care about the masses. I don't care. I don't care. If you are repelled by me, go. You know, it's kind of like dating. I don't understand these guys who will continue to pursue and chase a woman that doesn't want them. I've heard stories about guys who finally, I don't know, twisted her arm and she decides to go on a date and they actually get married. And then I'm like curious. I'm like, man, you compelled her to be there with you. She wasn't attracted to you. I don't want people that I need to compel, I need to twist their arm, or I need to manipulate my way of being for them to hang out with me. Right? Like dating. I don't want to pretend to be something that I'm not so that you can hang out with me, so that you can date me. I have no interest in that, because that's a facade I'm going to have to keep up. The hardest thing for me to do is to maintain a fake facade. That's why I disappear from YouTube a lot of times. Because I'm like, I'm not feeling authentic right now. I don't know where I stand. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know up from down. So you know what? I'm just not going to show up. Because I'd rather show up as a complete me than a partial me. But you know what? That's also, it's good to show up when you're unstable too. At least I've discovered that for myself. I'm like, I can't wait till I'm feeling stable all the time in order to show up. That's why I started making videos last week. I'm like, guys, I'm unstable right now. I'm unstable right now. And the feedback has been great, because y'all are fucking unstable. We all unstable. What's personal is universal. So my question for you guys today is this: Do you censor yourself, and why? Like, really ask yourself why. Am I censoring myself because I want to be liked? Am I censoring myself because I owe it to my shareholders so that the company does? Now, that would be a totally different story. If Elliott Hulse Inc. was a shareholder company and people were buying stocks in it, I would have to step down as CEO. I would have to step down. I would have to censor myself to some degree. I'd have to go into something else. Or are you just doing it out of habit, fear, or truly out of charity? Because you can censor yourself out of true charity. I was explaining this to my son-in-law earlier this week. He was having a problem. My daughter and her sister were having a problem, and he wanted to come to his wife's rescue. And one thing I explained to him, this is wisdom of a man who's lived with women, for over 20 years, multiple women. All these, I'm talking about daughters. I'm not a polygamist. One woman is enough, and 3 daughters, gosh, I don't want any more women. Stay away, women. But I explained to him, I said, you did the right thing by not saying anything, because when you get between 2 women that are important to you, you can't win. You cannot win. So out of, charity, you don't, and the charity extends also to the fact that they both actually needed to figure it out. But there are times when you do need to censor yourself because, number one, it's just not worth it. And then number 2, it's like you actually sometimes need to help that person. Like, for example, I didn't say anything to my man yesterday when we were on the phone out of charity. I bit my tongue. I was like, okay, I see where you're at. I'm not there, but I'm gonna smile, I'm gonna nod, I'm gonna accept your gift, because he genuinely wanted to help. It was, I understand. So rather than like rebutting or arguing, I just said, okay, cool. So in fact, I did censor myself. So I'll leave you with that. Why and when and in which way do we censor? Is it ever good? Is it always good? What do you think, dudes?